and welcome to my channel. My name is Rachel. If this is your first time here, welcome. And if it's not your first time here, thanks for coming back. So today, I'm gonna be doing the new makeup releases tag that Angelica Nyqvist and Samantha March created a few years back. I did do this definitely last year, maybe even the year before, but we're just gonna answer some fun questions. It is a tag video, so gotta love a tag video about some new releases that happened this year, just reflecting back on the year, taking a walk down memory lane. And of course, I would always love to hear your thoughts, any of your answers to these questions down in the comments. I will link both Angie and Samantha's videos down below in the description box, and let's do it. The first question is, what mainstream release lived up to the hype most this year? This was a hard one for me. I actually, when I think of hyped makeup, it's hard for me to know because I'm not one of the cool kids. I don't have TikTok. I don't even have it on my phone at all. So I don't know what's, quote, hyped necessarily, especially with mainstream makeup, but I think about the brands that are really big and that are popular. And for me, the one mainstream release that stuck out to me that really just lived up to the hype that this brand creates anyway with their quality products is the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette. This is by far one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes that has released this year. I think the quality of this is phenomenal. The great Natasha Denona formulas that I come to expect and love in a beautiful, gorgeous, classic, versatile, neutral palette format that I personally love. This palette is so gorgeous, and I feel like her formulas are just getting better and better and better, especially when it comes to the shimmers in these midi palettes. The palettes that have come out in this form, a couple of years ago, like the bronze palette, the glam palette, I've enjoyed, but I've always complained that the shimmers just aren't kicked up a notch. They're missing a little something, but this palette has gorgeous shimmers, a great variety of beautiful mattes. I think this has lived up to the hype of Natasha Denona. It's definitely my favorite palette that she's released this year. And I think in general, her palettes that she's released this year, with an exception of one or two, have been really, really beautiful. What indie release has lived up to the hype most this year? And for me, there are two brands I think that are just killing it. They are just really improving and getting better and better and better. So I don't really think of a certain release from one of these brands because I feel like all of the releases they came out with this year have just been phenomenal. And they are Unearthly Cosmetics and Odin's Eye. Just those two indie brands to me, I feel like they can do no wrong in my eyes. I feel like everything they come out with, at least in this past year, I've thought were so thought through, beautiful formulas, beautiful quality, gorgeous packaging, just getting better and better and pushing the makeup boundaries. Like Unearthly Cosmetics, every time they come out with a mystery box, I think it's just chef's kiss, beautiful, creative, thoughtful. I'm actually wearing Fall Magic Remastered on my eyes today. That palette is absolutely gorgeous, and Sorcerer's Smoke that came out with it at the same time, just gorgeous. I have no complaints about those palettes. There's nothing I would really change about them. And then Odin's Eye, they're Jewels and Gems, Stone and Rock palettes, and the whole collection with the jewelry. I just think it's so innovative and thoughtful. And then of course, Angie's collab with Odin's Eye, which I will be mentioning later on as well. And their Christmas release this year. I mean, just everything that these two brands have come out with this year, I thought have been phenomenal, and they live up to the hype that they've created for themselves. And I just hope they keep getting more and more success. Which releases did not live up to the hype? So I have two. Now, again, in my mind, when I think of hype, I'm not thinking hype on TikTok. I'm thinking more these brands I feel have a high standard. People speak highly of them. And one of the brands that I'm going to talk about first, this was my first experience with the brand, and I don't feel like this lived up to the hype that it has had for the years that it's been around, and that's Melt. I picked up the Electric palette. Now, I don't think this is a bad palette. I think it's good. It's fine. I like it, but I definitely don't think it's anything absolutely amazing, mind-blowing. There are some people that love the brand. And again, this is the only thing I've tried from the brand. And I've heard that this formula in this palette is not the usual Melt formula. So of course, I will have to try some other things from them before that I write them off, and I'm not writing them off. But I definitely feel like my first experience with this brand, with this palette, I thought it was oh, I mean, it's good. It's very pricey. I actually thought the shimmers in this were better than the mattes. And typically, I've heard the opposite with their formulas. But this just didn't live up to the hype. I thought it was going to be life-changing, and it wasn't. It's good. It's fine. I will continue to try more from this brand. Let me know if you love Melt Cosmetics. Like, what are your favorite products from the brand that you think I should try to really get a good opinion on the brand? I would love to know. The other release that I didn't feel like lived up to the hype, and this is from my past experience with the brand, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, I guess you could say, with this, because I have talked about this before, but especially because it's a collab with a creator, and I don't want to do that. But I definitely was expecting a lot more from this palette, from Dose of Colors and Trevor. This is the Eternal Love palette. Now, of course, we all remember, if you've been here, on YouTube watching content for a while, the Dose of Colors Friendcation palette from Katie and Desi. That palette was iconic.
She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment.
Okay, you can't tell me that it wasn't. It was iconic, especially for the time. But even still, I feel like I did declutter that palette, I want to say last year, the end of last year. I had used it last year, and the formulas stood the test of time. The mattes were just buttery, blendable, right amount of pigment. The shimmers were just ultra wet looking, super smooth, super pretty. This palette is not that formula. And I get like that the idea is you've got a bunch of neutral mattes. You can use one of these more toppery, more subtle shimmers to add something special. I found that these shimmers are very, very, very dry. I found that the mattes are very powdery and not pigmented, pretty dusty, like they kind of dust away. I was kind of disappointed in this. It was not what I was expecting based on my past experience with the brand. But it's okay. I don't need to love every single thing that comes out. So maybe this is for someone else, but just for me, it was not what I was expecting. Okay, the next question is, what was the biggest curveball? We've come to a place in makeup where I am no longer surprised. I'm no longer shocked when, a brand says they are collabing with a random IP. I'm not gonna be shocked if e.l.f. collabs with Lysol next year. I'm just not gonna be surprised. There's not too many things that I would say were like a curveball for me, but I will say the one thing I didn't see coming was Kara Beauty doing that cookie tin palette. Points for creativity. Very strange, but very creative and very weird. I don't think I would have ever thought of that in a million years. I definitely don't like the layout of the inside at all whatsoever. I get it. But it had me scratching my head a little bit. The other thing that I thought was a curveball, but I actually thought was really good in the end, was the American Eagle and e.l.f. collaboration. I didn't really see it coming, but I think they did a phenomenal job with it. The palette came with a slipcover that's got the texture of one of the price tags from American Eagle, and then the actual palette feels like denim, and then the palette inside, the color story and the quality was very good. It was very good. I think when e.l.f. does collabs with IPs like the Chipotle palette, I think they do a really good job with their quality, and I think the quality is even more stepped up than their usual eyeshadow formulas. So I was really impressed with that. Definitely was kind of confused, scratching my head, but in the end, I thought it was great. What was the biggest letdown / snooze fest of this year? For sure, Kaleidos and their releases this year. I'm really confused why they keep releasing these quads. I feel like they could do so much more, and it's boring. It's boring to me. Now, if it's not boring to you, I'm sure you're loving it. But for me, I feel like very, very similar quads that they released last year. There are so many other things they could have done. They could have even made the quads completely different color stories. But it's a brand that I've really been wanting to try things from, but they just keep releasing products that I think are just really boring. And it's unfortunate because I've heard their formulas are great. And then of course the whole debacle with their blushes, like the blushes that they released this year being very, 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 very light, kind of weird. Yeah, that's a letdown to me. And then if you've been here before, a big letdown for me was the Ace Beauté Floral Collection. Now, this may just be me. Well, of course, these are all just my own opinions. And I've heard from other people that they don't have this problem with these palettes, but I had a really hard time with these palettes. In the past, I've really enjoyed Ace Beauté's eyeshadow formula. I think the mattes are really pigmented, the shimmers are really, really pretty, but in these palettes, I just could not get these mattes to work at all whatsoever. At all. Like, I could not for the life of me pick them up with my brush. I could not build them up on my eyes. They swatched horribly. The shimmers were pretty, but also hard pressed in the pan. I was able to make them work. But these palettes definitely were a letdown for me. I was expecting a lot more. They're beautiful color stories. I like the packaging, but they just didn't work out for me. What was the unsung hero of 2023? Again, I'm gonna go with brands because that's just what I feel, and it's my video. There are two brands I think that are on the up and up. They are kind of flying under the radar, but they are slowly gaining traction, and people are really starting to catch on to how amazing these brands are, in my opinion.
That's my opinion!
They are Fantasy Cosmetica and Bella Beauté Bar. I think both of these brands are so good. Unearthly and Odin's Eye, like I mentioned earlier, they're a little bit more popular. They've got a bigger following, in my opinion, than these other two brands that I think are flying under the radar, unsung. I feel like in the next year, they're just gonna blow up and continue to just rise to the top. Fantasy Cosmetica, I think I did try them for the first time this year. The eyeshadow formula from that brand is so good, especially the shimmers. Oh my goodness. And the mattes are good too. And I love the concepts behind their collections. They are a fantasy-based indie brand, so just like the fantasy genre in general, and everything that comes out from the brand is thoughtful, and the packaging is really cute, and the Lost Library collection that came out recently, oh my goodness, one of my favorite themes of a collection I've ever seen. I love that they're releasing different products besides makeup products, like they came out with candles, they're doing fragrances. I mean, just really, really innovative and high quality and amazing. So I'm so excited for that. And then Bella Beauté Bar, they are a brand that, did I try them for the first time this year? I think so. I bought one of their palettes earlier this year, and then I bought one of their palettes later this year, and the quality difference from those two palettes is like night and day. Not that they were bad before, they weren't bad, but they are just improving their formulas, and their matte formula is becoming one of my favorite matte formulas. Unbelievable matte formula, and the shimmers are beautiful as well. I just love when a brand continues to get better, improving their formulas, wanting to do better, higher quality products. They are going to blow up as well. They're just unbelievable. Their products are great. What was the best holiday release this year? So when I think holiday, I usually think Christmas time, but for me, my favorite holiday is Halloween. So there were a lot of spooky Halloween themed collections this year, right? A lot. My favorite was Angelica and Odin's Eye Halloween. I thought all of the products were top notch. When I received the package in the mail and I opened it up, I gasped. I was shocked at how absolutely beautiful the packaging was, the theming, and I love the two palettes, how different they are and different vibes that they give for Halloween. We have the more like traditional spooky oranges, warm tones, greens, and then we have the more playful, youthful, colorful side of Halloween. And all of the lip products also were really, really, really well done. So that was my favorite holiday release this year. The next question is, what was the best collab of 2023? There were a lot of really good collabs that came out this year that I really enjoyed. Obviously, like I just said, Angelica and Odin's Eye, but I also really, really, really loved Heather Austin's collab with Unearthly Cosmetics, the Resurgence collection. Everything from the packaging to the theming, and then the products inside were gorgeous. The palette is really fun. For me, like also the very big standouts were the highlighter duo and the lip product. I've been using them like crazy this year, reaching for them a lot. I really also love the Perfect World collection from Odin's Eye, the three creators that they collaborated with, Betty Jean, Amanda, and Lauren May Beauty. I think they did a phenomenal job with those palettes. Really creative, really beautiful. I mean, they always do amazing with the packaging, but I love how they depict the creators in their element on the cover of the palettes. And then all three of the palettes work beautifully together, but are different enough that they are unique in their own way. So I thought they did also a phenomenal job with those collaborations. What are your predictions for releases during next year? And this was hard for me to think about, but I kind of, listen, what do I know? I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just making some wild guesses. I think that what I said last year is going to continue next year, which is shock value items. TikTok is a thing, okay? It is a thing, and brands are trying to show up on TikTok. It's what sells product. And I think a lot of brands are releasing shock value things, like things that people can make TikToks out of, very short form content that adds like a kind of reaction. So like the pH balance things or plumping things, stuff like that. I think those are going to continue to show up because that is what is interesting to watch in a short form content situation. I mean, not for me. Unpopular opinion, I don't love getting reviews from short form content. I just feel like it's so... How can I say this? It can be misguiding. It can be misguiding. That's what I'm trying to say. I want someone to have used something several times before I really get their opinion on it. Or if it's a first impression situation, I want more than just 10 seconds of dialogue. Like, I want to know why it works. I want to see it. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. But also, I think another thing that's going to continue next year that has been happening is 90s inspired makeup and fashion, for that matter. It's so interesting seeing like the younger generation wearing and styling things that I wore when I was in high school. I was at a college football game earlier this year, last year, I don't know when it was, sometime. And I was walking and there was a girl in front of me and she had butterfly clips in her hair. I was like, oh, wow. So I feel like the 90s is going to continue on as we get into next year. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I definitely think that kind of cool tones, that kind of thing is going to continue on. I don't know how long it will last, but I think it's interesting. And then the last thing I want to say for next year is I think indie brands are just going to continue to grow. I think more and more people are going to discover indie brands, and I think that they are going to be rising to the top. And I like a lot of mainstream brands, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like indie brands do a lot of things better than mainstream brands. That's a generalization, but you know, I hope you get what I'm saying. I think that more people are going to catch on to indie brands and really they're going to become more popular next year. All right, and that is it for this new makeup releases tag. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I would love to know your thoughts down below in the comments, and I will link Samantha and Angelica's videos down below. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out a lot when you do that. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing before you leave. I do upload videos weekly, and I'd love to see you back on my channel again. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.